Welcome back to Take the Weight Out of Weight Loss. Today we're going to be talking about how losing 65 kilos didn't change my life and how I finally got it right. Let's dive in. Hi everyone, Natassia D'Souza here today. I am super excited to be talking about this topic because I know the one question I get asked all the time is, are you super proud of yourself for losing 65 kilos? And while I am, I truly believe that was a pivoting part in my life and my journey. There was a lot of things I did uncover about myself. And what I expected my life to be like once I lost 65 kilos was not the way it showed up. And I'm here today to tell you about that actual reality. A lot of us live in this world where we believe that as soon as we lose the weight, whether that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 35, 40 kilos, that a red carpet is going to roll out. And that's truly not what happens. What I realized after losing 65 kilos was that's when my journey began. After being overweight for majority of my life, something that I realized was I really didn't know how to deal with life. I didn't know how to interact with people after losing 65 kilos. I didn't know how to recognize myself in the mirror. I didn't know how to demand confidence or demand respect. I didn't know how to interact with men. I didn't know how to show up as that version of her, which very, very slowly but surely made me go down a very slippery slope and made me end up gaining 30 kilos back in 6 months. In 6 months, that is not a joke. And I constantly asked myself, if this was something I truly wanted, if all my life I was made fun of, I was called a fat kid, I was bullied, and all I ever wanted to do was lose weight, then why did I put the weight back on? Why did I allow myself to gain that weight? And that simply showed me that the issue was much, much deeper than diet and exercise. The issue was much deeper than me understanding that all I have to do is eat right and lose weight. And actually, there's something more here that needs to get brought to light. So, just a little breakdown on some of the pressures and anxieties that I felt after losing weight. Did I feel confident? Yeah, because I was allowed to fit into clothes now, or I could fit into clothes now that I couldn't previously before. So it was easy for me to walk into stores and just try on things. But was I confident picking up those outfits and thinking they would look good on me? No. Did I criticize my body every single moment I got, even after the weight loss? Yes. Was I upset that I was now left with stretch marks, loose skin, and loss of body fat in areas that I didn't want to lose body fat in? Yes. But that was something I had to come to terms with. But no one gives you that heads up. No one tells you that these are some of the realities that you will have to face once you lose the weight. And hey, maybe it's because they think it will deter you from the process, but a heads up would have been great because I slowly started realizing that life wasn't feeling as how I imagined it to be. Life wasn't feeling as glorious and glamorous as what I thought it would be. Like in my head, literally in my head, the minute I lost the weight, there would be fireworks everywhere. The queen would be coming to say hi to me. Like I'd be on Oprah. Like that's how it played out in my head. But that was far from the reality. And as time started to pass by, I realized that there was so much more I had to learn about myself. Being overweight for majority of your life deprives you from a lot of things that other individuals could have experienced. Deprives you from having relationships, deprives you from now, I'm giving you my personal experience. You might have been someone that experienced relationships early on, but I didn't get to, let alone a faithful relationship. Deprives you from being able to go on rides, such as going to a theme park. I can't tell you how many rides or theme parks I've been denied entrance to because I couldn't fit in the rides. So yeah, it did open a lot more doors for me as far as that aspect of life goes. But what it didn't show me was now the new reality. It didn't show me a new audience of people that I was attracting that were now criticizing me for even more. Don't get me wrong, you are a winner. You are a winner for taking the time, the effort to lose all that weight. It is something to be super proud of, but something that you need to be aware of and keep in the back of your head once the weight loss comes along, that there are going to be people now that are going to criticize you after the weight loss as well. And this was another insecurity that I was starting to deal with. People were coming up to me and now telling me, oh, looks like you're losing too much weight. You should stop, which was very, very confusing for me. After years of being told you're fat, you need to lose weight, now telling me you're overweight, you need to stop, that was a hard pill to swallow. Then I had people, including my father himself, saying, wow, you lost weight. I never thought your arms would look that way. It built my insecurity around my loose skin so much. I believe it's something I'm still getting past today. I have come to terms with it. Is my loose skin something that I will tackle in the future? Maybe, maybe. I have had a tummy tuck done, but as far as my arms go, I'm quite comfortable with where I am right now. But having someone in your family alone calling that out, making you feel ashamed about it, was something that I didn't expect, because I truly expected that once I lost all the weight, my parents would be really proud of me. I really thought that my weight would never be a topic of conversation ever again. And for majority of the party was proud, but there were these snarky comments that were now getting thrown my way that I had to address and come to terms with. And over time, dealing with these comments, eventually I started going back to what I knew best: food. Food was my best friend. Food was the person that never judged me. Food was the person that made me feel safe. Food was the person that made me feel really good in those difficult times. And so, as those comments kept increasing, as my body kept getting highlighted now in different ways, shapes, and forms, and me slowly realizing that, wow, I'm not the normal that I thought I would be in my head, and I have a different reality to deal with, I started going back to my coping mechanism. And before you know it, the weight slowly started creeping back on. I still remember the first day I had of my first binge after the weight loss. This was when I was in Montreal. I had just moved into my new place. I had come back home from work and I was feeling empty. I was feeling so empty. And so I made myself a protein shake. And you're probably thinking, a protein shake, that's healthy. But I made myself a protein shake and I felt like it wasn't enough. So I made myself another. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to have some protein bars. So I went to the grocery store a few blocks away from me and I picked up 4 protein bars. And along the way coming home, I seen an ice cream shop. I picked up some ice cream for myself. And I remember finishing all of that night with a lot of stomach pain and thinking to myself, what did I just do? This doesn't even make sense. What did I just do? And I brushed it off. I never thought anything much of it. Mind you, I also didn't know I was struggling with binge eating at this point, but I brushed it off. But what I ended up noticing that this exact pattern started happening now once every week. It then increased to twice every week. It then increased to about 5, 6 times a week. And I was gaining weight rapidly. There was no control. Every single emotion, every single people pleasing tendency, every single time I was feeling ignored, alone, lost, I was going back to my old habits. And I didn't even realize it was happening. I didn't even realize the damage it was doing. I mean, I was feeling my clothes tighter. I was noticing that I was avoiding the scale. I was noticing that I wasn't looking at myself in the mirror, but my clothes were speaking a completely different language. I could tell that I was gaining weight very rapidly, but I was not choosing to come to terms with it. Something I realized over the years is that when I initially lost the weight, all I was ever focused on was the physical. All I ever imagined myself to be was a thinner version of me. I never imagined myself to be a more confident version of me, a more smarter version of me, a more upfront, a more reliable version of me. All I ever imagined for that version of me was slimmer. And that's all I ever got. That's all I ever achieved after the weight loss, which made keeping that weight loss off even longer. So if you have gone ahead and lost the weight and put it back on, the one question I really want to ask yourself, and it's the same question I asked myself, is what did I do wrong? And what do I need to start doing to keep this weight loss off? Because the elements that were missing for me was my habits, my mindset, the way I approached myself alone, and the way I approached and presented myself in front of other people. All these elements had to change, and I never accounted for them. I slowly slipped back into my old habits. And if you start slipping back into your old habits, your old routine, your old way of life, guess what? You're going to start looking like that old version of you. And that's something that I slowly had to come to terms with. My mindset here was really key. So while I was looking great, I was now in smaller clothes, I appeared to be healthier. My mindset was still stuck in the version of me that was obese, was still stuck in the woman that I was 145 kilos. And that was not fair. That was asking an individual to live two different lives. And trust me, it showed. It absolutely showed. You could see days where I was trying to be the new version of me. So I would get up, go to the gym, make my shake, have my breakfast. And that was the new Natassia in the morning. But by the time 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock rolled around, the old Natassia started creeping back in, binging, junk food, eating, watching TV, not moving, going to bed really late, scrolling on social media. My habits were completely out the window. And the one thing that I realized that in order for me to keep this weight loss off for as long as I have, I truly need to embark on this version of Natassia in a 360 approach. So, as the weight slowly started creeping back on, and me neglecting it and rejecting it and pretending like it doesn't happen, and no one really saying anything much to me because either they were being kind or being nice or whatever the situation could be, I didn't really understand the impact of it until I went back home for holidays. And I went back home, and my mom did make a comment to me saying, "Wow, you look like you've put on some weight. Is everything okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And we had a party at my house that evening. And I had one of my aunts who has made quite a few negative comments to me in the past say, "Your thighs have gone back to what they were. You've gained a lot of weight." And as harsh as that comment was, I don't believe anyone has to go through a comment like that or have to face that. It made me really come to terms with my reality of what I have done in the past 6 months, of the damage that I had done to myself, of the neglect that I had put in front of me, in front of my very own eyes, and was pretending like it wasn't happening. And this was the ultimate breakdown for me. I remember going back home. I lived 4 hours away from my parents, and I remember going back home, and I didn't go home for a very long time after that. A very, very long time after that. And I didn't even explain to my parents why I wasn't coming home. If they're listening to this, they'll know now why. But I felt at that point that I was placing blame, that I was pointing fingers, that I wasn't taking responsibility of my own actions. All I kept saying was, "Oh, well, if they didn't invite me or they didn't offer me that food, I would still be thin. If they didn't do this, I would still be thin. If I didn't have a stressful job and I didn't have to work for a living, I would still be thin." I was making excuses for my behavior. I was making excuses for why I had put on the weight. And so I decided not to go home because I had to come to terms with my reality. I had to come to terms with what I had just done or what I had just undone as far as my weight loss goes, and come to an understanding that it's happened now. What do I do next? And I knew at that very moment that my next steps are going to have to look very different from my steps before. Yes, it's going to include diet. Yes, it's going to include weight loss. But there were elements there that were left uncovered that needed to get addressed, such as emotional eating, such as my binge eating, such as me leaning to food when I feel lonely, when I feel sad, when I feel upset, when I feel depressed, such as me not being able to confront people, such as me being a people pleaser. These are things I really had to come to terms with. And when you're starting out in the beginning, trust me, I have worked with many women. It seems overwhelming. It seems overwhelming when you realize that your problem is not just diet and exercise, because now you think, am I flawed? Am I not a normal person that I can't even use diet and exercise and keep the weight off? And that's not the reality, because many of us struggle with food as a coping mechanism. But what happens is that in this day and age, it's normalized. We need to eat to survive. Food is something that we eat 3, 4 times a day, five, six. So it's very normalized that if you're overeating, oh, get over it. But food, just like any other coping mechanism out there, alcohol, sex, drugs, gambling, can impact you in the exact same manner. The reason I was eating food to that capacity, the reason you are eating food to that capacity is because you're looking for a dopamine hit. You're looking to take that edge off, that uneasiness, that uncomfortable feeling that loneliness, depression, anger, sadness, confrontation is giving you. And that's no different from an alcoholic saying, "I'd like to have a drink right now to take that edge off." It's the exact same relief that we are looking for. But it's normalized because we eat. It's normalized because food is a part of our everyday life. A smoker or alcoholic doesn't need to have cigarettes or alcohol to survive. So it's, in a way, them living that alcohol or tobacco free life, they can live it. They can continue to live it. But when you use food as a coping mechanism, we can't tell ourselves we're not going to eat. But what we do tell ourselves is let's go on a diet. That will fix the problems. Let's cut out carbs. Let's do keto. Let's do Mediterranean. Let's do Atkins. That will fix the problem. But actually, what it does is it causes even more damage. So now comes creating the new and improved version of Natassia D'Souza. Now, this improved version, as I stated, is going to have to do a lot of things different than she did in the past. One of those was identifying those emotional eating triggers, because I was noticing that there was a Jekyll and Hyde scenario going on. I was noticing that in the daytime, I was quite active. I did want to do good for myself. And I did notice that come nighttime, I was different. So that immediately indicated to me where my problem area was and how I needed to deep dive into that further. And one of the questions that I asked myself is, why do I do it? Why, when I come home through those doors, I want to eat food and lose control? And the light bulb moment for me was understanding that I was lonely. I had just moved to a new city 7 months ago. I have never lived away from home, never lived away from my parents. And I was trying, as excited as I was to start my new life living alone, I was very lonely. I had no friends, no family around me. Majority of the people around me spoke French, which I loved. I loved every part of being in Montreal, but there was a learning curve that I was not acknowledging. And that is something so key when you're struggling with food and coming to terms with your anxieties and your reality. Just acknowledging the problem provides so much self compassion for yourself. You start handling yourself with a little bit more care rather than pretending it doesn't happen. And I was pretending. I was pretending that I was living my best life ever. But in reality, I was sad. I was lonely. I didn't have friends. I missed my friends. I missed my family. But I was trying to come to terms with it. And the minute that light bulb switch hit, it was a game changer. Because from then, what I started doing is I moved my gym time from the morning to the afternoon time, which helped significantly. I also enrolled myself to get certified as a nutritionist because I knew that there were deeper connections to food that I wanted to learn about. I knew that there were ranges of food that would provide me more satiety, and I had no knowledge of that because, as we know, my majority of my weight loss came down due to me cutting carbs. I didn't change my relationship with food. I didn't understand what was healthy, what was not. I simply cut out every single carb you can ever imagine. I simply ate meat and vegetables, and I stuffed myself in every meal for a year and a half until I lost the weight because I thought that would be my life changing moment and I would never have to do it again. So there was a huge education element that needed to come in for me to come to an understanding of what would be better for myself. Taking that course was also one of the best things I could have ever done because it showed me the importance of protein. It showed me the importance of carbs and how you can use carbs and still lose weight, and it is not the enemy. It also made me understand binge eating. It also made me open my eyes to how binge eating can affect women and men and how it can really take control of your life. And that's where my journey truly began. That's when I started realizing that there was so much more that I had to understand, uncover, and learn about myself as far as this weight loss journey goes. Because now it was not just about losing weight, it was about keeping it off. It was about creating this version of me that was unshakable, that no matter what life threw my way, whether it be anger, sadness, hurt, grief, I had to handle it outside of food. I had to deal with it. I had to come to terms with it as far as my emotions go. This was my reality. Hence, we have our online platform called Feel It, Not Feed It, which is what we're trying to promote and what we're trying to have people understand. Feel your emotions and do not feed it. Because the more you feed it, the more you're giving control to your emotions to take control over you, take control over your body, take control over your eating habits. You want to come to terms with I cannot handle difficult feelings, but what can I do instead? Because overeating, binge eating, emotional eating, that should no longer be your option. So, along the way, I had to develop some very realistic habits and routines for my life that looked very different from the version that lost the 65 kilos. Now, some of them were changing my gym routine to understand that I was feeling lonely. I did realize over time I am just a morning gym person. I like going to gym in the morning. Some days I would make the excuse to go to the gym after, but never really make it. And then I would feel super guilty and ashamed. And it actually triggered my binge. Again, a learning opportunity. I also understood the importance that this is going to be a learning curve. And when it's a learning curve, it's not perfect. I was allowed to fail. I was allowed to tell myself I'm going to go to the gym in the afternoon and some days not make it and binging and learning that about myself. But if I sat there and felt guilty and called myself fat and made myself go on another diet just because I skipped the gym when I was trying something new, that's not fair. That's not fair to me. That's not fair to you. So, understanding what works for you and what you can commit to was really important. So, I slowly started understanding that I love going to the gym in the morning. I'm not an afternoon gym person. I'm not an evening gym person, but I do like going to the gym in the morning. I'm quite energized then as well. So, I try to mimic that routine every single day as much as I possibly can. Next was bringing on board food that made me feel full without allowing me to put on the weight and making me feel lethargic and tired, which was cutting out the amount of processed food I was having. And at that point, I was having cakes on cakes on cakes. And I'm not joking you. I'm not talking about those mini birthday cakes. I am talking about big 6 to 8 people cakes that I could eat in one sitting. And so understanding that there were alternative options. Now, even doing that triggered me at some point because what I told myself was okay, if I can't have cakes, I will find every healthy recipe for a cake out there with clean ingredients. And that's how I will get my cake fix. While that did work in the beginning, what ended up happening was I started now binging on those cakes in the name of they're clean foods, they're healthy. And so, again, not getting to the root cause of the problem. What I then started realizing is that I loved feeling full. And the way that I could achieve that was with two very important ways in my life. One was volume eating, which is basically consuming large amount of food for low calories. And two was upping my protein. These are two elements I still do to this very day. Upping my protein has been the ultimate change for me because the amount of satiety that I get from upping my protein, I didn't even realize how much of protein I wasn't having. I didn't even realize that. So, as much as there's health benefits to it, I'm not a PT, so I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, it's going to grow your muscles. And I'm sure it has those benefits as well. But for me, a binge eater, someone that struggled with food, someone that was constantly looking for something or the other, some sort of satisfaction in food, protein gave me that fullness. Protein gave me that assurance. Protein gave me that feeling of, I can do this. This is not too bad. I don't always need to give in to what my thoughts are telling me about overeating. Then comes my point three, understanding that over the years, being overweight for that amount of time made me have a lot of negative beliefs and negative thoughts about myself. A lot, which did not disappear after I lost the weight. But what was happening was, as I was on this journey again, those thoughts and messages started coming back and playing back again. And I, for some reason, started believing every thought that my head would tell me. So, your third lesson here is do not believe every thought that comes your way. We get thousands and thousands of thoughts in a day, thousands. That does not mean that you have to believe every single one. The ones that you believe are the ones that serve your higher good, the ones that will bring out the best version of you. And the ones that tell you you're fat, you're lethargic, you're a binge eater, you will never change, are the ones that we don't have to believe, are the ones that we can bypass, are the ones that need to get left behind. Those were the exact thoughts that were holding me back. Those were the exact thoughts that were telling me that now that I've gained the weight after this weight loss, I will never achieve it again. Yet I'm sitting here in front of you, close to 15 years later, maintaining my weight. So trust me. And if this is something that you are doing, it needs to change. and it needs to change now if you want to lose the weight and, most importantly, keep it off. Life for me now goes way beyond the number on the scale. I mean, do I check my weight every day? Yes, I do. But remember, it's because the number on the scale doesn't trigger me. I don't determine my self worth, my value by the number on the scale. I simply use it for data. I simply use it so that I can share it with all of you. I'm even very open about it on my Instagram saying, hey guys, I gained 8.8 kilos today. Looks like I had too much soy sauce last night, or looks like I had dinner really late. Simply to show you that the number on the scale doesn't determine your consistency, your efforts, the time, and the amount of attention you're giving this journey. You're so much more than that number on the scale. And once I realized that, I came to terms with me stepping on the scale every day. It was fine. It actually taught me a lot about myself. It taught me that I can step on the scale, or I could eat carbs and not gain weight. It taught me that I could eat ice cream and weigh it, measure it, enjoy it, and still not gain weight. It taught me that I could enjoy birthday cakes and that carbs was not the root cause of my problems. And so, do I recommend this strategy to everyone? No, I don't. But it has really, really improved my relationship with food. For me, right now, what matters is consistently maintaining my habits, learning, growing, and building habits. I am in the phase of my life right now is where I am so much more than my weight loss journey. My weight loss journey no longer truly defines me, but I understand that in order to really embark on this version of me, in order to truly have that red carpet that I had planned out in my head, I need to work every single day to continue maintaining this person. And that means, truly means, embarking on a mindset that allows me to sit here, have a confident conversation with you guys, sit here and talk to women from around the world, helping them in their areas that they're struggling with, and be able to truly be that person of compassion and light that you might not have at this very moment. So that's pretty much what life looks like for me right now. Do I go to the gym? Yes, I do. Do I get my steps in? Yes, I do. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see I'm on my walking pad or I'm on my way to the gym first thing in the morning. So, yeah, those are some of the habits I did entail. One of the most common questions I get asked is, do I still track food? I do, but I'm not as rigorous as I was before. What I will do is, if I've gone on vacation or if I've celebrated an amazing Christmas, like me and my partner just celebrated over the holidays, I will start bringing tracking back into my life in order to get back the habits and the consistency, because over the Christmas holidays, I did have a lot of fun. And that's normal. That's part of life. Everyone gets to enjoy. But the idea is never to go back to that version of me where I was 65 kilos heavier. The idea is that I will always be the person that will struggle with food if I allow myself to go back to those old habits. So I need to put certain barriers in place to increase my habits, to increase my consistency, hold me accountable, and get me back on path. So now, tracking for me looks like maybe tracking a good breakfast, maybe tracking a Saturday, just to know and ensure that I'm on track. Do I track every single day? No. But I'll ensure to at least do it twice a week to see what my numbers are and play around with. If I have something big coming up, I want to look my best version of it, then yes, I will increase accountability there, but definitely not every day. And that's where I want you to be. Tracking is just a tool to get you to where you need to be. It's not something you have to do for the rest of your life. But maintaining your weight loss, that's something you're going to have to do for the rest of your life. And this is why the more you can start accepting it, the more you can start making that a part of your life right from the beginning, right from when you start losing weight, the better you're going to come to terms with it after the weight loss. That was my biggest mistake and my biggest regret till this very day. That if I was just sat down for 10 minutes and said, look, yes, it's diet and exercise, but we want you to change your relationship with food. You need to develop new habits. You're going to have to learn to maintain it and be consistent. I believe it would have truly changed the trajectory for me. But in reality, I gained the weight back. But now I look at it as a positive experience, because if that hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't be the version of me here today in front of you, being able to share my story and help so many of you via podcast, via my Instagram, via our platform. So I'm truly delighted that I went through that. As hard as it was, as difficult as it was, I'm truly delighted that I went through that. All right, guys, so that was my journey on how I lost the 65 kilos gained it back, but it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. I hope you found that story inspiring and you were able to connect with many of those paths, because if it's happened to me, best believe that it may have happened to some of you out there. Thank you for joining us on Take the Weight Out of Weight Loss podcast. We hope you find the information and strategies discussed helpful on your journey with emotional eating and weight loss. Feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes, and see you next week for a brand new episode.